Hi, welcome to Let Us Seek the Lord, where we read through the Scripture about a chapter or two a day. It takes us about it will take us about 3.5 years to finish this completely. At the end of the Scripture reading, I'll give a brief meditation on the glory. You can get more written information about this on Amazon.com/author/J. Craig Chaffin. And today's February 18th. We're looking at Exodus chapter 1. Before I start the devotional end of this, let me give one quick instruction concerning verse 11, where the text says that the Israelite slaves built the supply cities of Pithom and Ramses. Based on this textual problem that's there, liberal scholars like Cecil B. DeMille have assigned the Exodus to the Pharaoh Ramses. However, that's incorrect. At the time of Moses, Ramses was not yet born. We know this from Scripture because 1 Kings 6:1 says that Solomon began building his temple in the fourth year of his reign, 480 years after the Exodus. We know that Solomon began his reign about 970 BC, so the fourth year of his reign would have been around 966 BC. And that would place the Exodus around 1445 BC. So if you follow the Bible, Ramses II could not have been the Pharaoh of Exodus. The name Ramses in Exodus 1:11 was probably changed centuries later by Hebrew scribes when they changed the city name from Avaris to Ramses in honor of the 13th century Pharaoh. So if you want to investigate that further, I've listed an article and two videos that you can look at on the community page of my website. Without any further ado, then, let's get to reading. Now, these are the names of the children of Israel who came to Egypt. Each man and his household came with Jacob: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. If you want a good song to sing those two. Just ask my wife; she knows it. all those who were descendants of Jacob were 70 persons, for Joseph was in Egypt already, and Joseph died. All his brothers and all that generation, but the children of Israel were fruitful, increased abundantly, multiplied, and grew exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now, there arose a new king over Egypt who did not know Joseph, and he said to his people, "Look, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, lest they multiply, and it happen in the event of war, that they also join our enemies, fight against us, and so go up out of the land." Therefore, they set taskmasters over them to afflict them with their burdens, for they built for Pharaoh the supply cities Pithom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew, and they were in dread of the children of Israel. So the Egyptians made the children of Israel serve with rigor, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar and brick and all manner of service in the field. And all their service in which they made them serve was with rigor. And the king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives, to whom the name of one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other was Puah. And he said, "When you do the duties of a midwife for the Hebrew women and see them on the birth stools, if it's a son, you'll kill him. But if it's a daughter, she shall live." But the midwives feared God, and they did not do as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the male children alive. So the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said to them, "Why have you done this thing and saved the male children alive?" And the midwives said to Pharaoh, "Because the women are not like Egyptian women, for they're lively, and they give birth before the midwives can come to them." Therefore God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied, and they grew mighty. And so it was, because the midwives feared God, that he provided households for them. So Pharaoh commanded all the people, saying, "Every son who is born you shall cast into the river, and every daughter you shall save alive." Monday, February the 16th, I attended the Abolish Abortion rally at Oklahoma City Capitol. There was one lone counter-protester there, and he placed himself in a very visible location and mocked the rally. His poster complained that our God supported racism and slavery and genocide. Well, some critics of the Bible complain that the God of the Old Testament is a bloody God. Depending on how one defines genocide, God himself committed genocide in producing the flood of Noah. He himself commanded genocide in the command to kill the giants who infested the land of Canaan and brought child sacrifice as a common practice in Canaan. In this, their iniquity came to its fullness as God prophesied to Abraham in Genesis 15:16. Yes, God did command to drive them all out or to kill them. If that bothers you, you should study who the giants are. The oldest understanding of who they are is that they are the offspring of fallen angels and women whom they took to themselves. These giants were the epitome of evil, hence the flood and the command to kill them or drive them out of the land. Israel's relatives, the Ammonites, the Moabites, and the Edomites, had already done so, but they had also succumbed to their wicked practices of child sacrifice. The giants of Genesis 6 were the ones who brought about the extreme sexual immorality and extreme violence that led to the worldwide flood. If one accepts the extra-biblical writings of the Jews prior to the life of Jesus, like the Book of Enoch or the Book of Giants, then these giants were also practicing cannibalism. The giants of Moses' day were practicing child sacrifice according to the biblical record. Honestly, though, most of the bloodshed in the Old Testament is man's inhumanity against man. Let me ask you this. Can a just God allow such bloodshed to go unpunished? I don't think he can, and allow it forever and still be just. Can God allow Hitler's murder of 6 to 18 million people to go unpunished and still be a just God? Romans 13 tells us that God has given the power of the sword to the government to punish the evildoer. If the government does not punish the evildoer, you can be sure that in eternity God will. When someone honors the Lord in the midst of injustice, should it go unrewarded? No, it shouldn't. And in today's passage, we see that it isn't. The midwives of Egypt feared the Lord. They didn't do according to Pharaoh's command. They didn't commit infanticide. God dealt well with the midwives and their families because they feared God. It's a good principle about God. In general, if we fear him, he deals well with us. Maybe we don't see it in particular points at particular times, but when our lives are over, we'll be able to look back and know and say with Joseph and the Egyptians' wives, what man meant for evil, God changed for good. When we see injustice going on around us, what should we do? Well, we should first we should pray. Then we should encourage our governing officials to lean into God in order to understand how to act righteously, for that is why God gave governments. Our government should legislate and execute righteous laws. That's not to say that there's no place for mercy. There is a place for mercy. Were there not, I'd be headed to hell. But let us always remember that God is righteous and holy, and he is also merciful. And that's part of his glory. Indeed, we serve a glorious King. So speak his glory to someone today.